bring all those untold, unspoken, and rarely discussed phenomenon that are happening at the workplace, and people usually just avoid them for a reason, for sure, because nobody would just sometimes feel like that probably this kind of vulnerability if I just talk about it. And we really know at times that we need to fix things up, but sometimes what the culture doesn't facilitate much. But this is where Confluence comes into existence, and this is what we are here for. We have to take step forward, facilitate you in this context once and for all for various topics. So the topic for the day is unlocking the ethical decision making and navigating workplace dilemmas. You know what? For years, for centuries, and for millennia, human beings have been existing together in groups. We have thrived in groups, but on the other end, when we are working in groups, there are definitely conflicts, and conflicts actually are based on the perception that we all carry, because everybody believes that they are having the best view of the situation and probably their solution would be working well. And when the solution actually, the contradiction is there, this contradiction leads to a conflict. And sometimes the conflict actually goes beyond, and we end up with an ethical dilemma. Really, this is not just about interpersonal skills. It's about the way we approach our work. It's about the way we what I would say, that interpret the policies at our workplace, understand the culture at the workplace, and that also actually has some say with the interaction. And like always, we have our thought leader for the day, Mamata Yusuf, our creative head for Confluence, and a very professional voice indeed, and all the times, like always, ma'am, thank you very much for your time and welcome to the session again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Uh, So our topic here, ma'am, a lot of words that what we just focus on words usually. So a lot of words that catch the eye, ethical, then dilemma, and then what we're just trying to help people out to unlock ethical decision making as well. So many things in the topic for the day. There's decision making, there are ethics involved, and we definitely will be targeting the middle level and top managers as well because they have to navigate through the workplace dilemma. So a bit of initial thoughts so that we could begin with the discussion.
Okay, interesting word dilemma, right? So this is a solid testament of one thing for sure that yes, at the workplace there will be areas where everybody probably we will be right. There'll be people who will be correct on both the ends, and you still have to make a choice between them. So yeah, dilemmas are when you are facing a certain level of and you realize that you have to make a pick, but that has to be the right one, the absolute accurate one. Reason being its workplace. So yes, there are many reasons and many ways where you find that there are going to be ethical issues and decision making areas, and you have to be very very prompt about handling them, right? So how do you navigate at your workplace with such dilemmas? That's a main concern, and yes, a very relevant topic. I mean, we all come across this every day, almost every day.
Sure. That's perfect. Thank you very much for the premise, ma'am. And now I reckon that we should delve into the actual discussion. When it comes to ethical dilemmas, there are so many situations that we come across all day long, and there are so many times that we actually have to choose one path or one of the two available options. That okay, I have to do it this way or I have to do the other.
Agreed.
And at times there is always what I would call kind of a buffer in everything, in every policy. There is always a facet of it that actually is not that definite. It's not that what I would say polarized in a sense that you could just simply go away, do it straight away, and you get the same results. You have to think about it. You have to take many things into consideration. So before we go into how why exactly ethical dilemmas matter, so when it comes to all these dilemmas, why exactly do they exist at first place, and how these could actually be the stepping stones toward excellence? A bit of a views.
Okay, so generally speaking, why do you think people at a workplace are so different from each other?
Yeah,
We are all coming from different backgrounds. Our social settings are different. I mean, there's diversity in such backgrounds. People come together to work at a workplace, and
sure.
then they have got to stick together at the same time, manage operations together. Then you're a part of a team. You're collaborating. There is so much that's going on, but it's humanly impossible that everybody thinks on the same tangent or thinks on the same frequency altogether. So how do we really manage that is a question.
Yeah,
um, अगर आपको लग रहा है कि हर चीज़ स्मूथ सेल रहेगी, ऐसा नहीं होता। आई थिंक मैंने बारहा अपने सेशंस में एक बात ज़रूर की है कि द बिगेस्ट इशू दैट वी गेट एट वर्क प्लेस इज पीपल मैनेजमेंट ओवर वर्क. Sometimes
yeah,
getting work done is a possible task only when people get along. So there will be situations where there will be ethical disagreements between people. So maybe your social setting could be different from mine, and mine could be different from
Perfect.
yours. So how do we sort of manage that all along, and we get along and we get the work done? That's the basic idea.
Right.
So
Perfect.
what we need to really look into is, are the probably the factors that sort of make them happen, right? That's what we're trying to talk
Yeah,
about here.
exactly. Yeah, definitely, definitely. The factors,
So
how the decisions are actually affected in a way.
right, right. So definitely your social backgrounds matter, and whenever you're coming together to work, yes, there'll be disagreements amongst people. Sometimes there's an issue about people having, or let's just say, having to not being able to enjoy their authority in that particular role that they're in. Sometimes I have seen people come to me with issues, and there's a clear demarcation of role definition. उसके बावजूद लोग आके दूसरों के रोल में भी थोड़ा सा इंटरप्शन करते हैं. एथिकली यू आर सपोज टू पुट द
Right.
अदर पर्सन, नो मैटर हाउ senior or so, put into their, a particular silo and tell them this is your domain, kindly stick to this and let's just manage it accordingly. So
Right.
ethically देखने में कुछ चीज़ें हम respect, reputation, legal implications, एम्प्लॉय की मोराल और बिजनेस सक्सेस को देखते हुए उसके जुमरे में डाल देते हैं, एंड देन वी सॉर्ट ऑफ जज एंड वे देम आउट हाउ टू गो अबाउट थिंग्स, राइट? सो
Sure.
उसके ऊपर बात आई थिंक हम कर सकते हैं. जी जी है ना सर.
Rightly so. Thank you very much, ma'am. Or there are like four elements that we have on the screen right now. That how
Yes.
exactly we are known for our decisions.
Right.
This is a very straightforward thing, but people will remember anybody probably later for their behavior, but the first things first, the decisions that they made, how they affected people. Because the decision that I'm taking right now, it's not just about me; it's about the people who are going to be affected, positively or negatively. And in either case, I'll be remembered and for
True.
long, to be honest with you.
Very true.
You see, we can take the examples of the judicial system, the people, the judges, the honorable judges, when they make decisions. Some of
Hmm.
the decisions actually become part of the
Constitution.
memory of the coming generations. They become
Absolutely.
part. They become the basis of changes in constitution. By the way, amendments in constitutions, they are so effective and so in that context, either for or against. That is another debate. But yes, on top of that, decisions really matter. But when it comes to ethical decision making, so the four elements that actually, for any person, for let's say me being a manager, there are four dimensions that how I can be perceived and why it matters so much.
True. So the first one leading from your conversation is your reputation. So why does really reputation really matter? So acting ethically builds trust and credibility with customers, employees, all the stakeholders, etc., whoever is involved from your public, right? सो पहला तो मसला यहाँ पे आ जाता है कि आपकी रेपुटेशन पे सवाल होता है. So if you sort of enjoy a reputation which is well sought for or well known for, or let's just say honored for a certain trait that you have, and that's maybe let's say honesty, integrity वगैरह वगैरह, इंसाफ पसंद होना वगैरह वगैरह, उसकी बेसिस पे तो you enjoy a good reputation. So decision making definitely determines that, number one.
Yeah,
नंबर टू पे अगर हम आ जाएं, yes, there has to be legal compliance. So complying with law and regulation is a baseline for ethical behavior. This is so important. Sometimes we actually cross the law which we do. So company law मौजूद है एक, जितने भी बच्चे लॉ पढ़ते हैं, अगर उसको देख लिया जाए, लॉ में एलएलबी की डिग्री में हो या एलएलएम में हो, हम कंपनी लॉ पढ़ाते हैं. उसकी वजह ये है कम, और सबसे बाय द वे सबसे लेंथी कोर्स होता है कंपनी लॉ का. एक कंपनी को
yeah,
एक प्रॉपर्टी लॉ बहुत है इसके ऊपर ना. देयर सो मच टू इट. जैसे जैसे वर्ल्ड प्रोग्रेस करता चला गया, हम रेवोल्यूशंस की तरफ चले गए इंडस्ट्रियल, हमने ये देखा कि इतनी इवॉल्व हुई है हमारी लॉ भी इसको लेकर कि वी हैव टू एक्चुअली कंप्लाई बाय देम, एंड ट्रस्ट मी, लॉ इज देयर टू हेल्प यू and support you in your decisions. So somewhere when you're complying with law and regulations, ethical behavior की baseline तय हो जाती है. जब वो तय हो जाती है
right,
तो फिर आपकी ethical decision making में आपको बड़ी help होती है. That way you're not the one who's taking favors or doing favors, you're the one who's following the law, and that's about it. And law is above all, like you are. इसमें
yes,
bias खत्म हो जाएगा, favoritism खत्म हो जाएगा, etc. So you're just being fair and giving a fair chance to everybody. So you're actually being inclusive also. The third would be an employee morale. Employees want to work for organizations that value integrity and ethical standards. Honestly, आज एक एम्प्लॉय मोराल को वैल्यू करने वाली कंपनी मुझे नजर आए और मैं एक खतरनाक सी कंपनी में काम कर रही हूँ, आई वुड आल्सो वांट टू स्विच. I'd like to be
sure,
valued. देखिए, 8 घंटे more than the time we spend awake at our homes, we spend at workplace. That has to
Yeah.
be nice. That has to be cordial. Your morale shouldn't be down. You shouldn't feel like don't feel like doing it. Energy nahi hai, etc. etc. Why? Because you feel that you're being unfairly treated. That has to be right, which is why employee morale is deeply effective when your ethical decision making doesn't work out. चौथे पे आ जाते हैं, that's business success. We're talking about organizations that act with ethics in mind are often more successful in the long run. आई थिंक अनान साहब, आई रियली अप्रिशिएट आप इसमें एग्जाम्पल भी अगर ऐड कर सकें तो करें। जितनी मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, जितना लोग एथिकली स्टैंडिंग पे रहते हैं, द लॉन्गर रन दे एंजॉय अ बेटर रेपुटेशन। आई थिंक दीज आर ऑल
Exactly.
इंटरकनेक्टेड, यू लुक एट दैम। I
Exactly.
personally feel businesses thrive on good reputation. I have recently built, um, uh, let's just say, business development for a company, और उसके लिए हमने जो reputation पे काम किया, and eventually हमारा जो business success का element था वो उसी पे base किया कि हम कितनी integrity के साथ काम कर रहे थे, हम ethically कितने sound थे,
Exactly.
were we being honest to the stakeholders who were involved, were we actually involving them in our decisions, how honest were we and how real and genuine, and how integrity ke sath how much were we working. That really mattered. Could you maybe add in something, please? Ji.
Yeah.
Hanan sir.
So,
Yeah.
Jima, I'm here. Just struggling with the mic, by the way. So, thing is that we've gone through all these four of the dimensions. Or before we move to the next question, I would just like to add a thing or two, because your reputation actually it stays there for a long period of time. It stays there for a long period of time, and your reputation actually is not in the structure of the organization. It's basically in the memories of the people you have worked with. See, and at the time when I have seen that slightest of decisions that we make, slightest, minute issues, and if we hold on to the values individually, I'm not just talking about the organization yet, not organization wide values and all that, individually as a manager or as an employee for that matter, that I uphold a minor of a policy where just sometimes hota hai shortcuts leke, it's all right, no problem, everybody's okay with it. But I personally believe the moment we start getting okay and fine with defiance of policies, even if that is a minor policy, that actually puts a reputation at stake, because now we are vulnerable in a sense that everybody feels like that, okay, fine, this guy can be manipulated.
Very
You
true.
got to give them a good logical reason to bypass the policy, and they will accept it straight away. But if you hold strong and you stay firm, that actually adds a lot to the reputation. And on top of that, we got to have a balance. I mean, seriously, if my superior tells me to fire somebody straight away, what should I do? I should put somebody's family at stake, or I should just take some time. It happened. It happened way back in 2015, 16. Uh,
Okay.
the CEO of the company that I was working with, they straight away told me, just fire this guy right away. वो बंदा भी सामने खड़ा हुआ है, and in the same room. And you know what I did was, I just brought the guy back and told him, just go by your business and be very careful next time. But he told you to fire me. Just forget about it. I know what he was talking about, and I know how to do it. So what I did, I waited for 48 hours. Am I being asked again? Did he ask me again that did you fire the guy or not? He didn't. Nothing
Okay.
happened.
So
And we straight
Anand,
away
may
went for
on a
it.
lighter note, were you fired?
No, no, not at all. Not at
Okay.
all. Because you know what, when you're working with the superior and you've been working with them for like say 1.5 year or so, you know what they're talking about. You know,
So
you
you know
know
your
that is an
boss. It's
impulsive
like
order.
driving a car. It's actually like driving a
Exactly.
car.
Because
You know
if
your
I would
car.
have been asked about after 48 hours, did you fire the guy? I would have simply said that yes, it's in process. And if I
Okay.
felt compelled, because that was an indication that now we are getting serious about it and I have to do it.
Okay.
Otherwise, it was just what I would say a typical term that is very common in Urdu, Hawaii fire, and I knew it. That is not, he doesn't really mean it. It was just a mere threat. The next time you
So
do it,
bottom line,
I'll mean business.
so bottom line, you went about being very ethical about it, and that helped you in
I
making
would
this
just
decision.
say that, because we have to have this balance. That should I go with the policy and straight away pay heed to the directives, or I should just take some time and leave everybody into a gray zone for a while and see how everybody reacts.
Which is why we would like to now come to the point where we want to talk about key principles of ethical decision making, right?
Yeah,
So उसके भी बड़े मज़ेदार तीन aspects हैं. The number one is transparency, the second one is
sure,
objectivity, and the third one is accountability. And
absolutely.
if the audience there, they can always see as well, we're talking about the same. So transparency से क्या मुराद है? It's about openness and communication throughout the decision making process. Oh my god, this is so important in every aspect, by the way. फिर आते हैं हम ऑब्जेक्टिविटी के ऊपर, लेकिन पहले ट्रांसपेरेंसी पे थोड़ी बात कर लेते हैं. Interestingly, being transparent helps you get through whatever is happening in the two-way communication. I mean, we are handling something that's happening between two people, at least, or a team. So, the more transparent you are in terms of making your decisions, the better. Why? Because your openness and your communication throughout this process, making it all transparent, everybody's on board, nobody's
Sure.
not following the law perhaps, and you have a set of instructions and rules that you're following through and through, and that's how it happens, right? फिर आते हैं हम ऑब्जेक्टिविटी के ऊपर. Now this is a very sane option where we talk about removing our personal biases and considering all relevant factors. So usually हम bias हो जाते हैं, we're humans. I mean that's a very big given. Sometimes there's a gender bias, sometimes there's a reputation bias, let's say, sometimes there's a seniority bias. So there's so much that goes on in our hearts, but what you have to go through is being very, very objective. Hence the reason that we have law in place. Like I said, it really helps you go through because you go by the law. अब आ जाएं आप accountability के ऊपर. It talks about taking responsibility for decisions and action. किसी ने बड़ी
Absolutely.
प्यारी बात की, the captain goes down with the ship. You take leadership as a role, and then when you assume it, you sort of deliver by standing behind your team all the time, however you are raising them, but at the same time you take ownership of whatever is happening to them. So by the end of the
Absolutely.
day, as a leader हो या individually भी आप इसको देखें, accountability is important. Nobody's spared.
Absolutely.
It's like how the law
Absolutely.
works. So it's like the law of the jungle, let's just say. How you operate is going to be decisive about your decision making eventually as well. And of course, the principles really help you in deciding. हमने अक्सर बात कही है ना कि इग्नोर कर देनी चाहिए, अगर कोई बात सुनो तो हदीस में भी है, उसके कुछ जुमरे हैं उसके साथ, क्या इंपॉर्टेंट है, सुनने में काइंड है, एटसेट्रा एटसेट्रा. उसी तरह ना, फॉर यू मेकिंग योर एथिकल डिसीजंस, there are some certain principles that we talked about. Number one being
Perfect.
transparency, so everything is clear and crystalline in front of everybody. You're being objective, no biases, and accountability. So whatever decision happening is told to everybody on every step. Everybody's objective about it, no wrong decision making, nobody's getting sentimental or emotional about things. And then there's accountability. I think that really helps you make ethical decisions. Yeah.
Rightly so. Perfectly right. Thank you very much, Mom. And you know what? When it comes to transparency, this is what I personally believe is the most important thing. Is what you're doing, what you're saying. That there should be almost no gap, nothing at all whatsoever. And you know, when you talk to your team about something in the meeting, and when you went to go do something about it, the action is almost different than what you decided, because you just felt like that. Okay, fine, maybe this is a bit scary thing, scary stuff, so I need to step back, and you're not there to take the firm stance. And on top of
True.
that, again, it comes to accountability. I mean, it all starts with self accountability. We got to keep
Oh,
on, you know
yes.
what, I wouldn't say that we got to grill ourselves, but I would just say that we should have some values upheld in any context, in every thick and thin. Either it's raining cats and dogs out there, or it's just a good weather, whatever, or a hailstorm. One has to, you know, make sure that they uphold, and in any context. One of the biggest examples that I would quote is that probably late at night, usually there are no law enforcement persons in our crossings that could just come and oversee people not overshooting on the red light, but the people with integrity would still stay there. They will honor the law. They will still stay there. They will run at the
Absolutely.
time, and they will move once it's green. So that's the kind of accountability we are talking about here. So it was very thought provoking. But before we move to the next slide, next question, one of our viewers, Mr. Abdul Wahid Qureshi, has shared a very important book. Uh, I quote, I've also displayed his message here. Famous book. Thank you very much, WhatsApp. And famous book, Good to Great, specifically deals with ethical companies versus companies without values and ethics. So yes, definitely that will be a good read. So it is a recommendation for everyone, including myself. Definitely, it's on my wish list now. Thanks a lot, sir.
Lovely.
And moving to the next question, ma'am. And talking about, because we've already talked about why it matters and what are the priorities. You know, what are the common workplace ethical dilemmas? We talk about certain. We can actually talk about certain examples, but to understand exactly, you know what, that if I am a part of an ethical dilemma, how would I identify it? So probably these four things would help us out.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one being conflict of interest. So when a personal interest conflicts with the best interest of the organization, now that's something that has to do with your ethics. That's where you decide this is right or wrong. ऐसे बहुत काम हो सकते हैं जो आप करें, लेकिन वो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट में आए, जो कि आप कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल बाइंडिंग में है कंपनी के साथ, उसके बावजूद अपने पर्सनल गेन्स के लिए यू वुड लाइक टू गो द अदर वे. नाउ दैट्स समथिंग दैट इज अ वेरी कॉमन वर्क प्लेस डिलेमा. यूजुअली इंस्टीट्यूट्स में होता है, आप यहाँ भी पढ़ा रहे हैं, वही बच्चे शाम में भी पढ़ रहे हैं. कंपनीज में जिस चीज़ का आप उसको प्रोक्योरमेंट दे रहे हैं, पीछे से खामोशी में अपना भी काम चला रहे हैं और साथ साथ अपनी डिलीवरीज भी कर रहे हैं, वेंडर बने हुए हैं, इंटरमीडियरी बने हुए हैं, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. So very very important aspect where conflict of interest is something like you said, one has to uphold their own set of values. उसके बगैर these dilemmas will always be of course a problem to solve. दूसरी बात पे आ जाते हैं, that has to do with privacy. So when personal or confidential information is mishandled or inappropriately shared, now that all is again a very important thing, but that has to be something that has been damaging for you because somebody else did it. So that's also again an aspect where you have to be careful about, of course, your privacy as well. At the same time, wherever you're working, please make sure that whatever you're doing is always under योर कंट्रोल एंड नॉट द कंपनीज. उसमें क्या है कि अगर आप पर्सनल कुछ चीज़ें अपने लैपटॉप पे रखते हैं पर नेटवर्क पे लैपटॉप कनेक्टेड रहता है, तो आईटी ऑफिसर आपके लैपटॉप को भी एक्सेस कर सकता है. So there is a big hunch there. Not everybody knows it. So are we respecting that part of the privacy of our employees? That's also another ethical dilemma कि हम उनको छोड़ दें, लेकिन जी एक इशू है, ये हमारा कंपनी का लैपटॉप है, हमारे पास एक्सेस होना चाहिए. पर एट द सेम टाइम क्या
Sure.
उनको उनका एक्सेस अपने पास रखना क्या उनकी जिम्मेदारी वाकई है, या नई चीज को दे दिया है तब तक उस टाइम तक वी डोंट हैव टू सी व्हाट दे आर डूइंग. No, I can tell you, मेरी कंपनी में we can easily figure out who's been browsing what. So you know that's also part of privacy that comes into talking. But is it ethically correct or not is also a concern that we have to handle, right? Third पे आ जाते हैं.
Absolutely right.
That has to do with harassment and discrimination. So when employees are subjected to inappropriate behavior or attitudes, yeah, this happens a lot. There's a lot of bullying at my workplace. Sometimes you'll find people telling you, or there's a lot of discrimination. There's a lot of gender bias. There's a lot of leverage given to the ladies. Okay, the boss is male. He, gives preference to the males. He doesn't hire females because he thinks that it's easier to communicate with them. Different things. So that's also a part of it. And harassment is something that I feel up to companies सबसे पहले उसी की जब law पढ़ा दी जाती है तो लोग काफी careful रहते हैं. दे अंडरस्टैंड that इस पे एक्शन लिया जाएगा एंड वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड कि इस पे एक्शन लेना चाहिए भी. एक बार ले लें तो बाकियों के लिए यू सेट अ स्टैंडर्ड. सो दैट्स आल्सो समथिंग दैट यू हैव टू फिगर आउट एंड ऑफ कोर्स कीप इट वेरी crystalline clear. Business integrity is the fourth aspect when the organization is faced with unethical or illegal practices. Like I said, the set of values that define you individually will eventually affect the business also. So your integrity will
Sure.
eventually translate into the business integrity. Because अगर आप ethical practices कंपनी में ही प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हैं, you're a part of it, आप तो चले अनएथिकल हो ही गए, बिजनेस की भी इंटेग्रिटी कॉम्प्रोमाइज हो गई. जी सर.
Absolutely right. No, thank you very much, and really well put indeed. Or what, when it comes to some of the elements we already talked about, conflict of interest, and we do privacy is equally very important. I mean, you quoted a wonderful example because given the devices that the organization gives, and I am aware of certain organizations, not in a healthy number, thankfully, but they do have this, they deliberately leave a file or something that even the screens are being monitored. The screens are being monitored.
Yeah.
Once you're given the device, they are even monitoring the screens. There are softwares out there, I'm aware of it, that will take a screenshot after every 60 seconds and send it to the IT administrator straight away, or the boss straight away. So there are
Hanan साहब मैं वो
spying.
क्या बताऊं, when we went under pandemic I saw mashallah and I was happy to see the progress that NetSol made. I think systems और NetSol ने introduce करा दी थी softwares where they would monitor what's happening on the screen time, बंदा कितनी देर तक
Exactly.
उस सीट पर भी बैठा रहा है उसके ऊपर. So that's all. This सारी work
Exactly.
efficiency calculation है. But ethically, is it like invading privacy or what's really happening? It's a fine line you have to define also. जी.
Exactly right, man. So if you just move a little ahead of it, and what we've already talked about, important elements, but from a technical point of view, how do we analyze the ethical dilemmas and how exactly a manager? I
Okay.
mean, I would just say that you have identified it, but what are you going to do about it?
Gee, so a very interesting phenomena or a strategy that we've devised about it is a framework that consists of four easy steps. These four steps include number one is gathering your information. That's basics to everything.
Yeah,
Your big data is the key to everything these days. So, of course, data is important. So, what are the facts and circumstances involved in the situation? So, you analyze and have a complete, you know, let's just say, history or log of that first. Secondly, you move on to identifying the ethical issues. So, what are the values at stake? What are the ethical principles at play, or which principles are applying right now? You sort of identify them, you realize there's an issue, you gather information around it, and you understand कि ethically masla ban kahan raha hai. Then you sort of consider the options. I think that's a basic rule for any decision making, right? You consider what could be done, what are the possible outcomes, or what are the possible consequences to those possible outcomes. You eventually decide,
Right.
so it's like a fishbone activity that you do, and you realize these are my options and what could be the reasons that it happened because of, or उसके consequences क्या हो सकते हैं. Here you make a decision, you pick the right one according to your situation, you choose the best option, you take into account the ethical implications and practical considerations, the repercussions of that decision that you have taken, and you
Sure.
simply get to that decision easily. इसमें क्या हुआ, आपने ट्रांसपेरेंसी भी रखी, अपनी लॉ को भी इन्वॉल्व किया, and you sorted out your own problem, analyzing the entire situation easily. Yeah.
Perfect, ma'am. So I think these four steps are pretty much convenient for anyone just to have a look at the situation, because the more action plan is very important. We've
They
got
are
to actually
absolutely.
look at the options at how we can get out the situation one way or the other, and how exactly we can promote the culture among our employees for that matter. Because got to keep on talking. This is what I personally believe. You want to deploy some new strategy, you start talking about it, and not in formal way, just in informal way, during meetings, whatever the catchphrases, the words, the keywords. Keywords are everything. So you just keep
Yeah,
on talking about the same.
that's a subconscious awareness that you're
Exactly.
doing.
So we prepare
Subliminal.
them already, and when we actually deploy and put the strategy into effect, which actually turns out to be a policy now. Now nobody gets shocked, because they already had these rumors coming in, and this is basically what usually on the grand scale is done. That what, as far as the petrol prices, fuel prices are concerned, they will just just give this sort
So,
of social media sensation, create a sensation, and then later, just if they feel like that there is a fallback and people are going to push back, they will just simply say in a matter of way that, okay, it was a false information, it's a fake information, the ministry or the concerned department never issued any statement of this sort, but they were just going for a pulse check,
yeah,
our
yeah,
quality pulse check.
absolutely.
So we can
And they are
definitely
mentally
go for
prepared
pulse
for it
checks.
also, in a way. Agreed. बिल्कुल
Exactly
ठीक कहा
right.
आपने. Yes, yes,
Exactly right.
yes.
So next, the factors, I think we pretty much covered them, but we'll just take to the next topic, that what are the strategies, what to do about it, how should a manager start working on this very
Okay.
important element. We just talked about it, they got to start talking about it, but what else?
So I'll take this slide all the way from the right to the left. So ethical policies and your policies and your procedures have to be in place. What happens? You establish clear policies and procedures that define ethical behavior and guide decision making. That's the first
Yeah.
thing you put in place. Then you train and educate your people. The employees need to know, they should have the knowledge, the skills needed to make ethical decisions, and for that you train them. उसमें ही आप पॉलिसीज भी कन्वे करते हैं, प्रोसीजर्स भी बताते हैं, लॉ भी सिखा देते हैं. तो काफ़ी कुछ आप उनको पढ़ाते हुए जब जा रहे होते हैं, इवेंचुअली दे आर सॉर्ट ऑफ इक्विप्ड to handle situations and make their ethical picks, right? Which is why your contracts are all law binding. उसमें लिखा होता है you can't do this while you're here, conflict of interest पे काम नहीं कर सकते, वगैरह वगैरह जो सारी हमने बातें भी की. फिर जब इवेंचुअली इन्हीं लोगों ने मिलकर काम करना है, they have to collaborate. That's what you do.
Yeah.
You sort of encourage open communication and teamwork to address ethical concerns. होता क्या है, sometimes sitting together and then getting to a point is also somewhere you reach ethically. So you could be biased about something, I could be biased about something, but when we sit as a team and we discuss our options, we sort of reach
Right.
the right situation. So that's our strategy for navigating our workplace ethical dilemma situations.
Perfectly right, ma'am. And eventually we are just about like 3 or 4 minutes out of the conclusion. These are some of
Yes.
the examples that
Nansab, I think we lost you there.
we'll just make a comparative analysis. Yeah, I'm here.
You're back.
Network glitch.
You're back.
So, the examples, some of the
No
examples.
issues.
So, if we just walk through.
Yeah, you want me to walk them through? I see.
Yeah, ma'am, if you could please.
Okay,
Because
interesting.
I
Very,
will
very,
have
very
this.
interesting. If we begin with conflict of interest, an employee's spouse works for a competitor. Now that's something I'm already facing with a couple of my people. So how do you do it? Okay, so assign the employee to a separate project does not conflict with spouse's company. Now that's a very ethical way of going about it. Simple. Should there be an issue that has to do with privacy? So an employee takes client information to use in a new job. Now what do? Technically, you terminate employment and pursue legal action if necessary. Because breaching a policy that strong, where information is regarded as holy Bible, and that's like your charter, you can't just deny. That's a holy grail. You can't just break that rule at all. That's like the first law, I mean, of privacy. And of course, that's called client privilege, where you are assigned some information and that's just your clients. आप सबसे पहले तो MD sign ही इस बात का करते हैं, there's never going to be a disclosure. So this is very interesting where people breach that. And I'm so sorry, इसका सीधा सीधा हल यही है कि you terminate the employee. Simple.
Yeah,
That's a policy, and I'm sure everybody has that. Harassment and discrimination: an employee makes inappropriate comments towards a coworker. Now, this is where, by the way, the training and education comes, where you tell them what your policies are, you tell them the law, you educate them about harassment and everything else, and then eventually leave them to start working. This is where it
sure,
becomes an issue. So you enforce company policies, that's a solution, on the harassment and provide training to prevent future incidents. There you go. So you sort of make sure that this doesn't happen. And honestly, इसका सबसे अच्छा solution है आप शुरू में ही train कर दें employees को every year.
sure,
बिजनेस इंटेग्रिटी का एक बहुत बड़ा इशू है, वेरी प्रेवलेंट. अ मैनेजर मे जस्ट आस्क एम्प्लॉइज टू फॉल्सली रिपोर्ट इनकम. Now that's again an ethical dilemma that we might force. All what you could see is, as a solution, you could report the incident to the appropriate authorities and seek legal counsel regarding this, because it is ethically not okay
exactly.
to just go on to falsely
Sure.
declare documents which are probably which might just have legal implications in terms of falsely placed. Yeah.
Perfect, ma'am. And to sum it up, ma'am, I'd just like to add one thing that, you know what, when we are enforcing the policies, definitely we just got to have to keep one thing in mind, and that's very important. That in no way the employee sanity should be compromised. We
True.
have to make sure that they have this trust and faith, because they will have faith in policy matters only if they believe that the policy matters are not going to be brought to their self in that context, because everybody is there to commit mistakes. Everybody does. I mean, I don't know how many blunders I made at office today, but the impact wasn't that much, so they probably went unnoticed, or they were just
Hmm.
there for a few minutes, and either resolve themselves. Sometimes it happens the issue takes place, and
Yeah.
with the passage of time, due to certain reasons, that
Very
we'll
true.
definitely talk about it, that how it is, the matter gets resolved. You don't need to just stay stuck at that. But on the other end, it also depends on the intensity of the what I would say, the dilemma, that sometimes you are left with no other option but to make an example. And the worst of the examples that anybody would want to be part of or be featuring in is termination. So I'm not saying that we have to actually have a utopian sort of an organizational environment. Yes, there will be laws, there will be enforcements, there will be consequences, and it depends on the intensity. But the organizations need to make sure that the sanity of the employee should be upheld in any context whatsoever. So with this, if any final the final words for the day, ma'am.
I am just glad that we uh, put up this exercise today where we discussed such an important thing. I think companies need to realize that we need to sort of educate people on policies as well. और कुछ नहीं, आप दूसरों की भी limits define कर देते हैं. कुछ कंपनीज में अथॉरिटी मैट्रिक्स पे बात हो जाती है. बहुत चीज़ें क्लियर हो जाती हैं जब आप बैठकर कुछ सेट ऑफ रूल्स पहले से डिफाइन करते हैं. दैट इज जस्ट
Right.
इंडिकेशन ऑफ प्रोफेशनलिज्म इन योर कंपनी. बट एथिक्स एंड मॉरल प्ले अ ह्यूज रोल इन वट एवर रोल और company you work, etc., etc. This is going to always be a challenge unless you train people to understand the repercussions could be very, very detrimental for the entire company, and of course the
Yeah.
reputation of the person
Exactly.
who's doing it.
Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
think for that, knowledge and education has to be there, training has to be there, and for that, of course, specified curriculum has to be designed where you sort of tell and sort of bring that information out there to the companies. Which is why, of course, we're
True.
here. We are here to help, and that's about it.
That's it. Thank you very much, ma'am. Again, a very insightful session, and a very, very, what I would say, concrete impression from your side as usual. And words, if you're watching it right now, thank you very much. If you're watching it later, the recorded version, definitely, thank you very much again. and we'll come up with a new topic. We have a lot of them. We keep on talking about them, discussing, and we keep on observing what's happening around us. And then we, again, the idea is the uniqueness with the podcasts, with deconfluencers, that we just bring these issues to the forefront, the ones that people are rarely ready to even talk about. But this allows them, gives them confidence that okay, it's not a taboo to talk about it, and it's good to talk about it. The moment we do that, this is what thought leaders do. So thank you very much once again, everybody, and this is it. We'll be signing off. Thanks again, once again, ma'am, for your time, and
Thank you as well,
catch you.
Sahana. You put in so much effort every time, and we always do
Uh,
this as a team. I'm so glad
I'm
we
a
do.
part of a wonderful team, and I'm really proud of the fact. I'm just doing my bit, a little bit of it. Thank you very much, ma'am. So, thanks a lot, everyone. You have a wonderful day ahead, wherever you are in whatever corner of the globe. Stay blessed. Thanks.